The Victorians would have built it quicker. A comment which I've seen posted on more than one occasion, and not just in relation to the construction of HS2. The assertion being that the Victorians built the railways much more quickly than we build them today. This assertion may seem reasonable on the face of it, but when you dig a little bit deeper, you quickly realise that all is not what it seems. This is a complex subject with more than one factor to take into account, so I'm splitting this into two parts, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next instalment. To begin with, it's probably important to understand what people mean by the Victorians. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to take it to mean the people who built the railways between 1825, when the Stockton and Darlington Railway opened, and about 1914, by which time most of the network had been constructed. During this time, around 20,000 miles of railway were constructed, which is undoubtedly an impressive achievement, equating to over 200 miles per year. But that only tells part of the story, and considering at the peak of construction there were 250,000 navvies building the railway, then there's a good reason so much was built so quickly. But at what cost? It would be easy to gloss over the ultimate price that many navvies paid during the construction of the UK rail network, but the fact is a large number of people lost their lives, or were seriously injured during construction. Little thought was given by the early railway pioneers to the welfare of the workforce, or in fact their lives. I'm not raising this subject lightly or just to prove a point, but it is an often overlooked aspect of the railway boom. Unsurprisingly, there doesn't seem to be a recorded total figure for fatalities, but you don't have to look far for stories of horrific incidents which caused devastating injuries and killed many. For example, more than 30 navvies alone were killed constructing just one of the Woodhead tunnel bores. 73 men and boys were lost building the 4th rail bridge, and construction of the West Highland Line cost 37 lives. And the list goes on, but needless to say, we owe a great deal of debt to the railway navvies. Often the high-profile engineers get all the praise, but there's evidence to suggest the railway pioneers cared very little for the safety and conditions of the workers. Even those who survived horrific incidents with life-changing injuries were not much better off, with little or no compensation provided. The majority of the navvies were lucky to receive a regular pay packet, which was usually heavily docked, with food and necessities noted and the cost deducted come payday. Despite this, the general public at the time were more concerned with the behaviour of the navvies rather than their poor living and working conditions. So it's clear that the pace at which the railways were built came at a huge cost, in terms of lives lost. And for all of their efforts, we were left with 20,000 miles of superb railways. Or were we? Whilst it's true to say there are plenty of truly astounding wonders across the UK, such as the 4th rail bridge, and even some less well-known structures, such as the Sankey 9 Arches Viaduct, are impressive. But they are just some of the structures which have survived, mostly due to the fact that a belt and braces approach to construction was mostly used. Although outwardly some of the structures appear graceful, they were for the most part over-engineered. Despite this, the fact that they're still standing today is no accident, and many large structures built during that period are in need of constant and costly maintenance. As impressive as structures such as the Stockport Viaduct are, they only make up a small part of the railway network, and there are countless other structures in constant need of repair and periodic replacement. All of that speed didn't just come with a human cost, as the railway pioneers also cut corners in other areas, such as designing cuttings with steep slopes, which are now beginning to fail as our climate becomes increasingly changeable. Instructing thousands of men to excavate cuttings with minimal resilience against heavy and constant rain, or building over-engineered structures using centuries-old techniques, undoubtedly meant that the pace of construction was fast. But when engineers were forced to push the boundaries, then work often slowed, and the human cost rose as more and more workers were thrown at construction in a bid to make progress. Take Kilsby Tunnel for example on the West Coast Main Line, which was at the time the longest tunnel in the world. But it is only 2.2 miles long and took 1,250 workers 3 years to complete, with 26 workers unfortunately losing their lives during construction. In comparison, the 16km or 10-mile long Chiltern tunnel took 3 years to excavate, but required only 150 workers during the main tunnelling work. The tunnel is also comprised of 2 tunnel bores, each with a diameter of 9.1 metres. The years before construction began were spent preparing the site for the arrival of the TBMs, and making space to deposit 2.7 million cubic metres of spoil. Work that has taken place since last year's breakthrough has been to install safety features, which were not even considered during the construction of Kilsby Tunnel. It's also worth noting that during the construction of HS2, there has, so far to my knowledge, only been one tragic fatality. But today, one fatality on any construction project is a tragedy, and is often investigated thoroughly so the lessons can be learnt. In all, it took 20,000 workers 5 years to construct the 112-mile long London and Birmingham Railway, which admittedly is an impressive achievement. But then again, it didn't require the construction of 100 kilometres of tunnels, or the mitigation which has been demanded by local authorities and residents, such is the case for HS2. In addition, contractors delivering HS2 are having to build structures to comply with environmental protection laws, which early railway pioneers didn't have to worry about. Laws which will also apply to East West Rail and to any other new railways or roads. I'm sure if there were 250,000 workers building the railways today, and engineers didn't have to worry about mitigation, then a great deal probably would be achieved. But the total number of workers building HS2, East West Rail, delivering the Trans-Pennine route upgrade, and maintaining and upgrading the existing railway on behalf of Network Rail equates to less than 100,000 people, which also includes management and administrative staff. But the number of workers isn't the only important factor in deciding how quickly something is built. In the next video, I'll talk more about some of the other factors which are worth considering, just in case I haven't already made a strong case for losing our rose-tinted glasses when it comes to the Victorians.